Haven't gotten a whole lot done this week. The weather's kind of been crappy, and then of course this whole teaching from home mess, and taking the time to be Shay's teacher, so I go and do my stuff, then I come home and we battle on that stuff. We snuck out here once and crushed a little rock, and between the two of us we've now put hammer handles on every broken hammer I own, which turned out to be a lot. I don't really know why. I guess just everybody hands me hammers. Oh, you could put a handle on that someday. That someday was this week. Now what we're going to do is I have sheared off a pin on the backhoe, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can replace that without dropping the bucket on the ground, and then if I'm successful, I'm going to go ahead and start. Weather's crap, it's a mud hole up there. I'm just going to crush rock again, just something of value during this time period that will benefit us benefit us going forward. So let's see if we can fix the backhoe. Shay actually noticed it when it started to come out. I'm not sure what exactly I did. I suspect it's when I move dirt and I back up, I end up backing up into a rock cliff. And it's a slope, right? Comes up at a side, and I think that's what's finally worked and broke it. Although you can tell it's quite worn, pretty badly worn on both sides actually. What I'm going to try and do is get this end back in so that I can pry that out. I'd like to put my pin in. This is what I made right here. It's the same diameter. I believe it's been pivoting in the wrong spots. It's supposed to pivot on these bushings right here, which are greased, and instead it's been pivoting out here. So I'll get this pin in and find out where the hole's supposed to be, or if not, I'll drill a hole through it, and I'll get a pin in it, get it locked in place. With lock, there's not so much slop that locking the pin just shears it off, but that's the goal anyways. Get this side back in, get this side out, and I'll try and replace it. This pin stock is just those bridge bolt material that was holding together the old ferry landing. And you can see it's not the best stuff. It's not even perfectly round, but I mean, look at the rest of the machine. I don't think it's gonna matter. That one's broken, the new one's not. That's good enough for me. Okay, it's clear the whole bucket's got to come off, so I'm gonna leave it here. I got to be able to get that piston pin out. If I can get that piston pin out, then I'll be able to get the rest of it off for sure. So that's the first thing to tackle. This inside is definitely not the 1.25 inches that the pin was. Here's what's left of the broken pin. It was seized in place. Of course it was. Pivoting on that bucket ear right there. A little big. Now somebody has welded in heavy walled piece of pipe right here into this bucket ear. And I thought, okay, that's not so bad. I'll drop this pin through. I'll weld some other heavy wall pipe in there. Not perfect, but it'll make do. The problem is this is not 1.25 inches. It's got to be 1 3/8, 1.5 inches. knocked the pin out, I knocked this hardened bushing right here out. I can't believe they'd have supported the weight off of these two outer edges. But it doesn't matter because you're never going to get one in over there again. Not that I can see. I can't tell if this line is hardened bushing that sticks out or metal that's been rolled out. Gosh, I don't want to get dirt in there. That would be a disaster. Oh, and like, as long as I get the bucket off, I can deal with that too. But it's, you know, it's where do you stop, right? You slop at every single one of the pins, all the way up and over. I'll have to figure out once and for all if that's a hardened bushing. Boy, I can't believe a hardened bushing mushroomed like that. But on the other end, I got pieces of it. Pieces of the bushing that came out. That one I could order a hardened bushing for and put back in. I got the book for this thing somewhere, but it doesn't cover the hoe. So we're all just exploring. If it turns out that's not a hardened bushing, this machine is not worth, like, I know I can bring a mobile machine shop out and they can line bore this. But the hoe's not worth it. Right? It's just simply not worth it. I don't think there's any good solutions for this. We're going to have to fabric hobble it together. Well, out on the scrap pile, I found that. It's just some mild steel pipe, but it is at least the right size for bushings. We'll use the pin I made, and I'll take this and weld a piece of it in there, kind of like what they did here. And I'll use this pin as an alignment pin. Nah, she's full-blown dickered. See, it actually, once I started to grind it, you can see the lumpy pillows. I kind of ground most of them off. I think somebody's already been in here and tried to weld this up with just regular weld. So I think that I am going to just turn this into bushings. I'm well aware it's not the right thing, but I'm going to turn it into bushings. I'll use the pin to align it, and I'll tack weld this in place. We got us a plan. I'll put that same pipe spacer, I'll find a way to center and weld it into the bucket really well. I think this will work. It'll be good enough anyways. Good enough for that machine. There is something over there. An expansion joint. Some days it just hammers. And look at this. What is all this crap? So we're back here. Day 2 on the backhoe. Getting set up now to start welding on the bucket. So here are the ears cleaned off. You can see that this has a wear bushing in just this material right here. Hardened bushing in there, although it's cracked. And then somebody's welded that pipe on. This is missing all of that. So I'm going to cut and insert a piece of pipe and basically build what they did, except unlike them, they flush welded theirs. I'm gonna stick mine all the way through and weld it from both sides. So I think the first thing to do is to get in here, grind this out, put a big old chamfer on this side, and then do the same thing on the inside. And then I can cut some pipe. Unfortunately, the new downside is my pin is about 1.5 inches shorter than I would have preferred So I might have to see if I got more pin material and sneak back in and use the lathe and make up a new one, or whether I just, you know, if I hold it up to be right there and give us 1 full inch of material over here. I don't actually know, being flush welded on the outside, I don't actually know how much support that's giving it. I suspect it's giving it a lot less than my piece that's going through. So I suspect if I just cut a 1 inch bushing and slip her in there, we'll be good to go. So that's what I'm going to work on right now. There she is in place. I use these wooden blocks, however I had them cut there, to get the right spacing so that the bar itself was straight. And it is welded in nice and tight, even though it's a little bit of a farmer weld. I mean, there's still more slop on my side bushing than the other side bushing, but I mean, I took up over ½ an inch of slop there. And if you look at what it was doing to the pins, it's probably closer to 3/4 of an inch. Additionally, it was pivoting in the wrong spots. It's not supposed to pivot here. It's supposed to pivot in there. So when I'm all done, I'll drill this and pin it, force it to pivot in here, because these pins aren't greased, but this is. So I wish I had the ability to machine slightly thicker bushings. It's going to fit in there just fine, but it's not going to be much taller than this inner piece of pipe. So I think they've got this whole piece here welded through the boom and have machined these bushing cups at either end, and then the zert fittings, put grease in the center and pressurize against both sides. This isn't a machine in the prime of its life. It's not even in its middle ages. It's in its twilight. And absolutely I could take the boom off and bring it to a machine shop. But like I was saying before, where do you stop? So this will work. I'll put those 2 bushings in there. It's not going to hurt anything. It's a soft, mild steel, so if it ever gets down to the point where somehow it's considered worthy of a complete rebuild, look at the slop on that piston. Boy, there's something missing there. If it's worthy of a complete rebuild, you just machine right through it, so it's not like it's a permanent fix. I'm going to press in my bushing over here, but I'm going to have no choice but to weld it in there. Knock it in as far back as it's willing to go, and then I'll have to chamfer this hole out and just weld it up because of how chowdered it is. Alright, there it is in place. And the other one, which I left slightly long because You know, the bushing hole is a little wallowed out, and I didn't want it to move around. Now, unfortunately, this is so hard I can't touch it. Whatever this piece here welded in is, I can't even remotely touch it. So I got to find a way to pin this in place, because it can't keep pivoting out here. It's got to pivot in where the grease is. Alright, this is what I came up with. I've got a nut welded to the bucket, right, and I got a bolt that bottoms out, and it'll still let this pin float around. There's too much slop to bolt it firm. It had to be able to move, but I couldn't let it twist. I think that'll probably work. I guess we'll have to find out. If it fails, it's not that big a deal to grind that off and come up with a new solution. I believe we are good to go. Just trying to put this thing back together, pump it full of grease, see if we can get it to work. I cannot believe how much slop is in that bushing. I know for most machines that level of pin slop would be completely unacceptable, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was just a little bit ago. I should have left these bushings longer on both sides. I was too worried about getting it to fit and binding in there. I should have left them longer. I'll have to watch that one doesn't try to walk out. At best it can walk out 1/4 of an inch, but still, if it starts to walk out, I'll have to put a washer in there. But other than that, she's as broken as she ever was and should be functional. It might be that I hit this thing. Maybe I should have put it back over there, but let's go see if I can break it. Let's go lean on some stuff really quick and see what happens to it. Alright, I'm going to try to paddle. This is rock crusher rock. I'm going to try to paddle it forward with the bucket. It'll let me put a little strain on it without getting too crazy.
there's some air in the lines. The controls were super touchy today, but I didn't break it. I didn't hear any click, 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 click. Oh, that's why that zert fitting can't point that direction. Looks like I gotta put a new zert fitting in it, but that's good though. I mean, it's not good that the zert fitting broke, but it's good. I think it's doing quite a bit better. That bolt isn't bent. I figured that'd be the first sign that something was moving around wrong. That bolt's not bent. We do have a bunch of grease on this side already, so that does mean that the pin is moving around enough to pump grease through and past, which is totally fine with me. I know that might look bad to you guys, but oh, it's so much better. Alright. She has a new lease on life. At least for a while. We're going to pretend we didn't see the other slop. We're going to pretend we don't see the big puddle underneath of it. And we're going to call it a success. Oh, you know what? It is so god-awful muddy that I think, despite the weather being absolutely perfect for string line work, I think I'm going to bring the excavator down, and there's some welding I can do on it. So I'll go do that. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go weld up on the excavator. But this is now done.